Like many other cartoon franchises, Ben 10 has had a plethora of tie-in video games, but regardless of their quality or the memories they have given us, a thing I believe we can all agree on is that Ben 10 games were never quite given the chance to reach their full potential. And the reason is rather simple. These games were never meant to be anything more than just merchandise. Something to go along with the show children can spend money on. And while since I was a kid I have always fantasized about hopefully one day getting to experience a high budget, large scale, narrative driven Ben 10 game like the ones Harry Potter and Spider-Man fans got, the sad reality is that it will probably never happen. The demand for a Ben 10 game isn't nearly high enough to warrant a project of this magnitude. In simpler terms, when you know you're going to sell more or less the same amount of copies either way, there's no reason to waste money, effort and manpower on a big project when a smaller one can bring in a higher net profit. Now the question is, why do I assume there isn't a high demand for Ben 10 games? While I can't know for certain, here's my perspective. Ben 10 has a problem, one that is not exclusive to this franchise, as it has also affected other IPs. The problem, or should I say, what I personally perceive as a problem, is that at some point, Ben 10 completely gave up trying to even remotely appeal to an older demographic. Ben 10 Classic was the origin story of 10-year-old Ben learning how to be a hero after stumbling upon the most powerful weapon in the universe. As the years passed and Ben matured, so did the audience and consequently so did the story. The first 2 seasons of Alien Force are considered by many to be the show's peak. They dealt with some pretty grim subjects and delivered some of the best moments in the entire franchise. But as early as the 3rd season, you can already see the cracks starting to form. Ben started being portrayed much goofier than before, having seemingly forgotten most of the lessons he had learned up to that point. And also this happened. Ultimate Alien continued the trend with mostly serious episodes, interspersed with some silliness sprinkled in here and there. With Omniverse, the series saw a huge shift in tone, and afterwards, the 5th iteration of the show was a full-on reboot, receiving the Teen Titans Go treatment, making abundantly clear what its target audience was. My point is that, while Ben 10 may bring in new fans, the older ones kinda drift away, because other than independent projects, there's nothing new to keep them coming back. Hence, they either keep re-watching the old stuff over and over again, or they just move on. When making a Ben 10 game, we have to consider 2 important parameters. Number 1, the project shouldn't be too expensive to carry out, otherwise it would be much harder to pitch. Number 2, the final product must cater to young kids, as well as older fans who grew up with the show. Making a LEGO Ben 10 game would accomplish both of those goals. Admittedly, I'm not a game developer, but one would assume a smaller in scale game like LEGO Harry Potter is much cheaper to make than something like Hogwarts Legacy. Also, LEGO titles can be equally enjoyed by people of all ages. No offense to that game, but I can't imagine too many lapsed fans reaching for their wallets once Power Trip came out. On top of that, not everyone who played LEGO Jurassic World, for example, is necessarily a fan of the movie, or has even watched it. LEGO games are a genre on their own. People play them because they are LEGO games. Therefore, a LEGO Ben 10 could be purchased and played even by people who know nothing about the shows, and potentially introduce new fans to the franchise. It's also convenient that Cartoon Network, the channel Ben 10 was made for, and Traveler's Tales, the development company behind every single LEGO game for the past 18 years, are both owned by Warner Bros., making the creation of a Ben 10 LEGO game not only possible, but it's actually kinda baffling how it hasn't already happened. So, what would the game actually look like? While it would be awesome for it to be a best of all 5 shows, and give us the ability to control every version of Ben, turn into every alien, and visit every planet, it would defeat the whole purpose of going with a LEGO game in the first place, as these would be super expensive, not to mention much harder to make. Instead, we start small. The game will be a LEGO-style reiteration of Ben 10 Classic, and will follow the traditional LEGO game recipe: no open world, 15 to a maximum of 20 linear levels, and a hub area from where they can be accessed. If you want to reduce the cost of production even further, you can go back to the roots of LEGO games and make the characters mute. Personally, I always saw voice acting in LEGO games as a novelty and not a necessity. This wouldn't only save money, but would also make the story more accessible to people who don't speak the 5 to 10 languages typically included in video games. Alien transformations will be presented like the different suits in the LEGO Batman series, specifically LEGO Batman 3. You start off as Ben, being able to change only to Heat Blast, and as the story goes on, you pick up Suit, or in this case, Omnitrix tokens that will give you access to more aliens via a weapon wheel. An advantage LEGO games have is that since they are not meant to be realistic, you don't have to explain the gameplay mechanics and or limitations inside the story. Ben starts off with just one alien, not because a mosquito robot got into the RV and sucked the DNA off the Omnitrix, but because you want to give players something to look forward to and make them feel a sense of progression. Nothing more, nothing less. And to add a bit of excitement, picking up an Omnitrix token for the first time would play a brief transformation cutscene that introduces your newly acquired alien. But every time after that, during gameplay, turning into an alien should happen instantly. If you want to add just a tiny bit more depth, while browsing the weapon wheel, you could have the ability to press A and turn into the alien immediately, or press X to rewatch the cutscene. Either way, the point is that the player shouldn't be forced to sit through the transformation sequence every time they turn into an alien. This was the most annoying and time-consuming aspect of LEGO Batman 3. That being said, a great feature of that game that should absolutely be implemented is when the player faces a puzzle or an obstacle, they can press B and quickly turn into the alien whose powers they require in order to progress without needing to access the weapon wheel. You'll need specific alien powers to solve specific puzzles. In typical LEGO fashion, you'll come across puzzles and objects you won't be able to interact with because they require powers you have not yet unlocked. To interact with them, you'll first be required to finish the story and then replay the game in free mode with access to every alien you have collected. Now let's talk powers. If you think about it, every single alien power Ben possesses, with few exceptions, has at some point been depicted and had a mechanic associated with it in previous LEGO games. You could come up with new ones if you want, but you don't need to. So, here's a list of Ben's most prominent aliens and the in-game powers I would give him. Heat Blast would be able to walk through fires unscathed, or put them out by absorbing the flames. He could shoot fireballs and destroy gold objects with fire beams. Wildmat could use his enhanced senses as a sort of detective vision to track footprints and smells and dig out otherwise hidden objects like Wolverine, and since he can't see, he'd have no problem exploring dark places. Diamond Head could shoot projectiles, deflect lasers, and shapeshift his arms to open certain chests. Accelerate is fast. In some LEGO Batman games, we've seen objects that could only be constructed by characters with super speed, but they felt kinda forced, so I'm not sure about adding them. Grey Matter could be able to fit through small gaps, like Ant-Man and Atom, and since his thing is that he's very intelligent, he'd also have the ability to interact with computers. Forearms is strong, he'd be able to pull, push, and lift objects with orange handles. If you want to make it more interesting, you could include objects with 4 handles instead of 1, that can only be interacted with by 4-armed characters. Stingfly could fly, shoot goo projectiles, and use his goo as a grappling hook to pull levers from afar. Ripjaws could swim and walk underwater, and use his Esca to light up and explore dark places. Now upgrade is tricky since I don't think we've ever seen anyone with his powers in a LEGO game before. The only thing I can think of is giving him Mr. Fantastic's powers, but instead of manipulating his own body, he would first possess different pieces of technology and then turn them into whatever he needs. He could interact with computers and could use his laser beam to destroy gold objects. For Cannonbolt, I can't think of anything other than him being able to interact with the Robin Acrobat suit Bolt Switch. Wildvine could stretch his arms and use them as grappling hooks, use his bombs to destroy silver objects, maybe dig underground to uncover buried items like Solomon Grundy, which sounds the same as Wildmat's ability, but it's not. And like Poison Ivy, he'd be able to control plants and use them to reach otherwise inaccessible areas. Blitzwolfer or Benwolf could use his sonic howling to shatter glass, and his night vision to explore dark places. Snarrow or Ben Mummy could also stretch his arms and use them as grappling hooks. That's all I got. He's not very interesting, is he? Frankenstrike or Ben Victor could walk through electricity fields unscathed, absorb electricity to power down switches, and use electricity to power up other switches. Upchuck could eat bricks and shoot them back, and use his tongues as grappling hooks. Ditto could clone himself to activate multiple switches at the same time. Eye-Guy could shoot lasers and some of them would freeze stuff. He'd be able to use his sense of smell to find items and also explore dark places using night vision. As far as Way Big goes, while we've had very tall characters in LEGO games in the past, they can only really work in an open world environment. I can't see how Way Big could be in this game unless he has his own exclusive level or section of a level, like in Ultimate Alien Cosmic Destruction. Finally, Ghost Freak could fly, use invisibility to sneak past security sensors, scare/intimidate NPCs into opening doors and paths, and would also be able to possess them. I left Ghost Freak for last on purpose. If you've watched the show, you know that at some point he escaped from the Omnitrix and was replaced by Cannonbolt shortly after. When this part of the game comes, my solution would be to simply remove Ghost Freak as well as his puzzles from the main story and have them only as side objectives so players can come back and complete them during free mode. While that's the way I would go about it, you don't have to do any of that. LEGO games don't need to be one-to-one adaptations of the source material. You can take plenty of creative liberties if you think they'll make for a better overall experience. For example, in the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, Satipo betrayed Indiana Jones inside the temple and went on to die a very graphic death. In LEGO Indiana Jones The Original Adventures, on the other hand, the betrayal took place only after the two had made it out of the temple safe and sound. Since the game was expected to be played by children, this gruesome scene had to be changed. However, this adjustment did not have a negative impact on the story. While I can't think of reasons why Ben 10 would need to be censored in any way, you can apply the same principle and make changes to circumvent instances where the events depicted on the show do not translate as seamlessly in the game. If you look back at the LEGO game history, you'll find plenty of similar examples. If you want, you can keep Ghost Freak in the roster and make up a reason as to why this happened. Or don't. You can go on like nothing happened. You can even be funny about it and acknowledge the plot hole in the story. That's the magic of LEGO games. As long as the game is fun to play, no one would get mad about the small things. You probably noticed that I left some aliens out. That's because they only appeared during the Ben 10,000 episodes, and outside of that, they made little to no impact on the show. So developing puzzles and mechanics for them would be kinda pointless. I say, make them DLC. I'm generally against the idea of downloadable content, but it would be naive to assume that if a game like this ever came out, it wouldn't include any. On the topic of downloadable content, LEGO DC Supervillains had a DLC level based on the film Batman Mask of the Phantasm. The entire level was cel-shaded to match the style of the movie. In a similar fashion, you can add a DLC level based on Protector of Earth and give it its own unique art style to match the one from that game. LEGO games have always been co-op. Even when you play alone, sometimes you are forced to switch between two or more characters in order to progress. In this case, you can have Gwen and Max tag along with Ben. The issue is that since Ben is the main focus, you'd have to give the other characters their own special abilities to prevent them from being boring to play as. Here's where you can once again take a few creative liberties. Give Max some plumber equipment and maybe have Gwen be able to use magic right from the beginning. Another cool thing in DC Supervillains was that every character had a police case file on them that included information about their abilities and backstory. Assuming that the game would also be played by people not versed in the franchise, having plumber case files for every playable character would be a nice addition. And that's pretty much it from me. If this game succeeds, you can greenlight a LEGO Alien Force. If that succeeds as well, you greenlight a LEGO Ultimate Alien and so on. If all the games end up being massive hits, then a few years down the line, we can start having the conversation about a Skywalker Saga type of game. And who knows, maybe the potential success of these hypothetical LEGO games could pave the way for a non-LEGO AAA Ben 10 game in the future.